Okay, we're live. Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are. It's today. This is JacQueline with Intuition Power and Alana Heim from, well, Patreon, actually, Prosperity Alignment. Hi, Alana.
Hello, JacQueline.
So, our topic, what do you have to say about our topic?
Well, empowerment now.
Right.
We got to claim it. We got to look for it. We got to seek it. And I think really when we started trying to figure out like what's the topic today, we we're always told to like look for the beauty, find love, all these things to seek. And I think empowerment's a big one because it's not always around us. And what's jumping out at me is the twins are in sixth grade, so they're in middle school, which is like, it's not the easiest time in life, right? Everything's kind of changing. But and then my oldest is graduating high school, so she's a senior, and but both different worlds, different ages, and yet they're both struggling with. There're just so many teachers that are disempowering, not empowering, right? Not encouraging. It's almost like they're looking to get kids to fail or almost tell them that they're failures rather than helping to teach them to be better or to succeed. Does that make sense?
Right. I think they're a product of the product, and
Mhm.
there's been a decade or two of um, changing of the psychology of like there's if there's someone studying to be a Olympic diver and they take a dive off a high board, they have the technology today to, when they come off the board, they go in and they watch what they just did. And what the film does is it corrects them so that if their legs were a little bit apart or their hands weren't completely in the right position between them getting out of the water and going in to watch it, the AI corrects it to make it 100%. And they go, look, and they point out, the coach knows that their hands were off. Look how perfectly aligned your hands were. Look how perfectly aligned your feet were. And they walk out with that in their mind and they tend to do it better the next time. They're pointing out how good they can be, and not everybody has that kind of AI example, but everything from learning mathematics to getting through a test, the parents and the teachers are oftentimes disempowering by pointing at the wrong thing, pointing at what is wrong instead of, yeah, look at what's wrong, but look at what's right. Really look at what's right. And it I have a process, especially with my coaching clients, to every night as I'm going to sleep or when I'm doing my meditation later in the evening, I take a moment and I just imagine all the good things that happened, even though today might have been shitty and little things didn't work out well. I deal with that, but I also focus on the best part.
Mhm.
Like
Eh, eh,
when I was sharing with you when I was driving, I had a phenomenal meeting today that was absolutely probably life changing. That was like really great. But driving the whole way there, I was going through a lot of turmoil. I didn't mention anything to you about that. I just focused in on what am I sharing? And that's the part that was empowering. And that's what um, I want to emphasize within myself and with the people around me. But how many times do we go, we talk to our friend or our loved one and we go, well, this icky thing happened today and this like blah, 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 instead of this one thing happened that was really, really great.
yeah. And I know our brains are designed to think in negative thoughts and terms and stress And then we just perpetuate it. And then we have these 50,000 of the same thoughts over and over and over. And so then if I'm like stuck, right, then if I'm going to talk to you, what's going to come out? It's going to be all of that mental garbage, all of my emotional baggage, all the low vibration. And it really takes the work, like what you do, what I do with clients, to start to unpack that suitcase, right? And go,
Right.
okay, we don't need to see the negative, but what is the silver lining? What is the good, or how to reframe it? And it's like if someone asks my husband, how's your day? He always says, living the dream, right? Because that can mean anything. But it already is not like, or, it some people get excited like, oh yeah, okay, or they kind of laugh about it like, oh, maybe it's sarcastic. But again, it's a perspective that you're going to start to see who takes that perspective and looks at it in whatever view and lenses that they're seeing the world through. And if I'm a teacher who's frustrated with my job and all these kids that are like hormonal and pain in my ass, I might not be as empowering, right? But that is also something for me to recognize what's triggering me. Why am I suddenly like wanting to be vindictive, pull kids down, tell them all these terrible things that they're going to start to believe? And I think as humans, it was done to us, right? Our parents did it to us, their parents did it to them, right? It's these cycles, just like you said, it's the product of a product, but we get to choose the path that we take.
Yeah, and usually I agree with you. We get to, and I feel like it's more important than get to. It's a choice that is incredibly empowering, that word, necessary to become aware of. And that's one of the things with human design, one of the things that you do, because human design can actually show you a mirror of where those weaknesses may be, right? And then how to overcome and balance out those areas so that you are more empowered. Can you talk a minute about that?
Yeah, if you want to say in terms of mirroring, it's almost like we have the world around us constantly mirroring to us. And more, I can't stand it, right? It's almost like, oh, can we just not mirror anymore? But that's how we see the reflections, how we see each other. So if you and I have defined head nausea, which we do, we're already sending out signals to all the listeners who may suddenly be in our heads. They're going to know, we're going to kind of be mirroring to them thoughts that they can pick up, right? I have emotional energy. You're somebody who can feel my energy. So if I get triggered and I'm emotional, but I'm holding it in, you might be the very person that's going to help spark that emotion in me. And it's up to me to now feel it and not just lash out at you or, put it all over you. So you're like drenched in it. And then, you're confused going, oh my gosh, am I angry or is she angry? There's so many ways for us to know what energies are at play. Is it mine? Is it yours? Is it ours? And now, how do I respond? How do I really have awareness? How do I choose how I'm going to show up in this moment and respond to what the energies are bringing?
Right. I pay a lot of attention to words, and one of the things you said was, not that you meant this, I can't stand something. My teachers basically said so many times I'd hear that with, I can't stand that, blah, blah, blah. And she did, don't say that. You won't have a problem. You'll have a problem when you get older. You won't be able to stand. The I can't or I can, the subconscious mind, as people wake up to um, being able to look at their human design, and to which is basically a different type of mirror to your humanity, your life path, how you react, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, how you interact with others. Is that kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And um the if people, as people go on, continue to explore consciousness or whether you do a deep dive like the two of us have, or you just happen to run through this recording, there's something called cymatics. And I was lucky enough to see this machine, and it was like a plate, a vibrating plate, and they put sand on it and like a megaphone, and they talk into it. That's the simplest way of describing it, like a drum surface, and they talk into it and they'd say peace, 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 and the little thing, the surface would start to vibrate, and it made a beautiful mandala, very like that, very symmetrical, like a snowflake. And then they put it together and they put love, love, love. And again, it would vibrate and it would be a different kind of snowflake, but very symmetrical, beautiful. Like, wow, that's cool. And then they said hate, hate, hate. And it was a distorted pattern. It had no balance to it. And then they showed a slide of cancer next to it, and it looked very similar in pattern to the word hate. And it just made such an impression in my mind. I was in my late 20s, and I remember my mom used to say, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. And then I'd been studying metaphysics, and then I realized, if I don't have anything good to think, don't think it. So part of empowerment is really giving yourself the training. I wanted to say permission, but it's actually permission, but then training to listen to your own words and to pay and to grow yourself strong enough with the right friends, the right things that you read, the right things that you watch or listen to, whether it be music or whatever, on a regular diet to support your empowerment to be a better person and to really come from love, be firm. And love is not just a pushover. Oh, everything is like cool. No, not everything is cool. Um, so to be able to develop your discernment and to be able to choose and come from a loving, confident place. And really the key is know yourself, know your strengths and weaknesses. And so how do people do that? Miss Prosperity Alignment.
Well, and I think just like you said, it's there's this self piece in it. All empowerment is self empowerment. So we tend to want to say or do things that do unto others as they would do to you, or but the same thing with your thoughts, same thing with your emotions, right? Why are you going to bash yourself? Why are you going to get so mad at yourself and beat yourself up and tell yourself these really terrible, horrible things that you wouldn't say to someone else? And when you catch yourself or you catch and notice somebody else saying really mean things to you or to others, you already know, oh, there's some compassion here because that person is beating the hell out of themselves every single day. And I think that's the part that when you start to realize all healing is self-healing, all judgment is self-judgment, right? What we're doing to others, we're doing to ourselves. So to really be reflective, to pause, have the awareness, to start notice not just what the words are in your thoughts, but then what are the emotions? What's the physical reaction and the behaviors that come through? Because again, if we're beating ourselves up here, where are we beating ourselves up? When we eat, when we go out in the world? Sometimes, we do inflict pain on ourselves because we're hurting internally. And I think it's having this compassion for each other to realize, wow, am I being kind right now? If I'm a student in a classroom, and if the teacher is short, right, they're already going through something. And I think this to me is just the oneness aspect of life is we're all in it together. How can we help each other? And if I realize I'm really emotional, I even told you like, oh, I'm glad this was we can move the call because I was feeling a little grumpy and I just needed my own time and space to process. But that's something that I can share. And even if I'm in it, if I share that, right? I am giving you the grace to know I'm going through something. And if I tell you, hopefully you'll know where I'm coming from, but that's up to me to also say, look, if I seem a little short, please know I don't mean or intend to, project this on you. And I think that's really hard for us as humans because if we're not aware of what's going on inside of ourselves, we don't know what we're saying, if we don't know what we're thinking, we don't know what we're feeling, it just comes out. And sometimes for me, my compassion is I can just let people just let it pour out because I also know that's very healing. And not all the time do we have somebody who will actually just listen and let it happen. Because I know for myself, when I just vent and it all comes out, it clears. And I may not say the right thing, I may not feel the right thing, but in that moment, I am letting all of it finally have an exit point. And if we keep pushing it down and holding it in, it just starts to create that very cancer that you talked about that
Right.
looks like, yeah.
So one of the ways is to release some of that stuff is exercise or dance. One of the ways is journaling, to actually get your words and your thoughts, your feelings out on paper, or type it out or write it out. I love writing. And then just rip out the page and shred it or burn it. Just let it go. Don't hang on to it. Some people like to hang on to it. It's a different way. And but to get it out, to not always react to someone or to a situation. Sometimes it's appropriate. I think there's such a balance that, like, there's a behaviors in there. One of the agreements that I have people that I work with agree to is when there's something that's off, find the first appropriate opportunity to communicate it. So if you're, for example, a husband and wife, and there's something that is done in a public restaurant with a bunch of people, it may not be the appropriate time to blast them with it. This is the 18th time and blah, 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 blah. That may or may not be appropriate, as opposed to being centered enough to find an appropriate time and place, because the other person's not going to be receptive to hearing that at that time as well. It's not going to sink in very well. If there's, you it's almost like being punched and you sucker punched it again. So that takes a lot of training and self skill. And that's what life is about. That's why we're here, to learn, to grow. From, to me, it's from the inside out, to really get to that place where you can, like, if somebody there's that, I don't know what it is, like a clown thing and the punching thing
Mm.
arenas, and they punch it and it goes and then it pops up again and you punch it again. To be able to be that strong and centered, to not get knocked over. And if a punch comes, you're able to find that center and bounce back up. Not for the reason, not to be a punching bag at all, but to find that resilience. And that takes training to know yourself. That's why I keep going back to some of your work with your um, human design, and the courses that you have put out on prosperity alignment, because it is I think it's stronger. People call it a mindset, but I think it's stronger than a mindset.
I think so too.
I think
Because
there,
there's so much energy beneath that. And I mean, energy is part of all of the circuitry that's operating. But when you think of coherence and really that coming together into like unification, I guess, or oneness, right? You're not just wanting the mind to control it all. You want that piece to be a part of it, but there is the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, all of that. When you can really have it come into coherence in this oneness, it's powerful.
Right. So in our parting moments, I want to wish everyone a wonderful weekend. We have a 3-day holiday coming up, and is there a full moon or something?
Um,
Um, what's today? I lost track of the day.
we already
It's
had the
no,
new
no,
moon. Yeah,
we're
so
on a
come,
new moon cycle. We're right in between. Never mind.
yeah,
But
not quite. The following weekend we'll hit the full moon.
um, we thank you for your shares and for your comments. And just have a safe and wonderful weekend. See how much happy you can share, you can enjoy. We're getting into really good weather most places. And um, check out, I'm going to be, there's a John F. Kennedy 2-day conference on Zoom, which it's interesting because they charged $19.63. It's because that was the year that he was assassinated, 1963. So it's very affordable. And if anybody's interested, I'll put the link right below. They can get it. And I believe that you'll be able to watch the recording so we can go out and play during the weekend and catch up unless you have some time to catch it live in between. There'll be a new speaker every hour, and I happen to know the woman that coordinated it is one of the top last experts who's done like a lifetime of research on the thing. So she's got a lot of um, the top people that have gathered a lot of information. So it should be interesting information, especially for people that were alive when it happened. I was one of them. And uh, and so I want to wish you a happy holiday. How do people get in touch with your work?
You can find me on Patreon, patreon.com/prosperity alignment.
Awesome. And I'm intuitionpower.com. And we want to thank you both. Thank you both. Thank you all for watching Intuition Power Now. I'm going to get a banner soon, one of these days. And have a good week. Thank you for joining me. Hope to see you next week. Have a
All right.
great weekend, everybody, including you, Alana, and you out there.
Yeah.
Um,